Happy New Year, everyone. I'm Cameron Fanoff. I'm a Marketing Communications Associate at BioSurfaces Incorporated. This is the first of several exciting webcasts that we have planned for 2021. BioSurfaces' proprietary electrospinning technology is currently being used for many different applications ranging from medical devices to benchtop diagnostic applications. The company has come a long way from when it was first formed in 2003 by Matthew and Tina Fanoff almost 18 years ago. While I've been fortunate to have an inside look throughout the years, many people do not know the story behind the company. How has the company been able to advance the technology in a challenging area? What obstacles has the company faced and how did it overcome them? This webcast will give you a peek behind the scenes with the President and Chief Technology Officer of BioSurfaces, Matthew Fanoff, to answer these questions and many others as the company heads into 2021 and many promising programs on the horizon. Obviously, on the other line, we have Matthew Fanoff, and can you tell the audience a little about your background?
Thanks, Cam. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I started my journey as a biochemist, still am a biochemist, from the University of Massachusetts at North Dartmouth, which was at that time Southeastern Massachusetts University. I then was hired out of a college by a group in Boston called the Vascular Surgery Research Laboratory, which was then the Deaconess Hospital, which is now Beth Israel Deaconess Leahy. And I was brought in as a biochemist to work with these things called medical devices. Coming out of college, I had no idea what a medical device was. What are these surfaces that they were talking about for medical devices? And so as a biochemist, I was brought in to be able to take a protein and basically, in the simple terms, stick it onto a surface and try to change how the body reacted to it. And it was really from that point that I sort of became what I would call a biochemist material scientist. At that point in back in the late 80s, there really wasn't a lot known about polymer materials in terms of its uses for medical textiles. Now, at this point in time, there's a lot known about that. They actually have classes in college for material sciences and polymer sciences that weren't as readily available in terms of crossing over between biochemistry and the body. And so it was an interesting start to my career. Never thought graduating as a biochemist I would be applying that to materials that are used for medical devices, but yet here we are in 2021. And we've used that crossover for many, many years now.
In April of this year, BioSurfaces will celebrate its 18th year in business. This is an impressive achievement based on the fact that a majority of the startup biotech companies do not last more than 10 years. Can you talk about your decision to start a company?
Yeah, it was something that came out of necessity more than actually a plan. I was, as I mentioned before, I started as an academic researcher at the Deaconess Hospital. And so the primary difference between academic research is really to figure out what the mechanisms are of, say, a disease or a problem, and you look to cure that problem. But when you're looking at it from trying to advance technology and bring something to the forefront, to bring it into the clinical setting so it can help people, the academic institution setup really isn't sort of set up for that. And so, as we began to think about different technologies that we could apply, we then thought about, well, how do we then, if we have some ideas, if I have some ideas, how do I move them forward to really make a difference for people? And that was really led to the thought of starting a company to move some of these more advanced technologies that I was thinking about forward. And that led to actually me starting, co-starting a company with a person who was looking to also do something similar. And from that, that led to the starting of BioSurfaces after we decided to change the direction of where the technology was going. So We then started BioSurfaces in 2003, and I was hoping to get a single year out of Boston when I first started this endeavor, just to get a little break from the commute. And here we are, almost 18 years later, and the technology is really flourishing, and it's really an exciting time for the company. So it is amazing from when we started in the premise we started with into where we're at now.
Was starting BioSurfaces something that was always in your plans?
I think some people talk about having it as a bucket list item. It's something that they always dream about doing. And that actually wasn't in my plans. It wasn't something that I had thought about through college and said, if I can ever get out and develop some technology, I'm going to go start a company. I think, as I mentioned before, it really started out of necessity to move the technology forward, some technology that I was thinking about forward. That really was the drive behind it. I'm not a business person by training. I didn't have any business classes in college. And so it was really, for me, always about, and still is, it's always about the science and really trying to help people out. And that was really the driving force behind starting BioSurfaces. There's a lot of challenges and a lot of things that we face as a company that sometimes you're not planned for, especially if you don't have that type of business background. But you learn from a lot of great people that are around you. You seek advice of really some experts or some even friends who may be in a different field but can help you out. And I think that's really what's helped to move this company forward. But it definitely was not a driver of mine in terms of on my bucket list of things to do. And sometimes for those people who are small business owners will understand that some days you're like, why did I do this? But it really does, at the end, it's really about the science and the people that you have around you that really make it worthwhile to move the company, to start a company and move it forward.
What is the significance of the company's name, BioSurfaces?
That's a good question. I think, one of the things when I was thinking about when we were naming the company is how do we best represent what a medical implant or what do these materials face when they're placed within the body. So it's not just about the material that we make, it's also about the biology and how that material interacts in the body when it's implanted, or if it's not implanted and used as a diagnostic tool, how will it interact with the cells that are surrounding it or the environment that's around it. And so really, I thought it was really about the biology and the surfaces, which is, the name BioSurfaces came from, sort of shortening some of those thoughts up into one, into basically one succinct name. And so BioSurfaces was born. Actually, I was traveling to a research meeting and thinking about, all right, well, what's the name going to be for the company? And it was born on an airplane. So I was traveling to the meeting and actually developed the logo, which had then also changed from where it started to where it is now. But the name of the company still has a lot of meaning to me, and we still follow that same principle of how the materials interact with the body.
One of the main challenges that comes with starting any company, which is amplified for a biotech company, is funding. What was your approach?
Well, we were fortunate enough, I was fortunate enough working in an academic research institution when I started my career, is that you learned how to write grants. And when I first, again, coming out of college, similar way that I didn't know what a medical material was, didn't know what a grant was or a contract was for science. And so, I was sort of thrust into learning about this very quickly as the manager of the lab pretty much immediately resigned within the first 6 months that I was there. And so we really had no supervisor and had to figure out, well, how are we going to bring in money to this academic institution, especially our lab, not necessarily the institution, but really more towards our lab. And so I was fortunate enough to have some really great people around me who were ambitious, who were also willing to learn, people like Dr. Keith Ozaki, who was a resident at that time, so a person in training for surgery, and wanted to also learn about grant writing. We were also fortunate to have guys like Bill Quist, who was a real good mentor of mine, also in the lab, and also people that weren't necessarily scientists, like someone like Cheryl Lotino, who really taught me the finer arts of editing and refining the submission. It wasn't just all about the science, but also about how the proposal was written and formatted. Those people, along with people I work with in the lab, like Dr. Mauricio Contreras, really set the stage for grant writing. And so I took that knowledge, and it's something that I could have resisted and said, "Oh, the heck with this, I'm out of here." But I really like a challenge, and all those who are entrepreneurs understand that you always like to have a challenge. And so I took that upon myself to really learn the fine nuances of writing grants. And from there, I wrote some of the first business grants, small business innovative research grants that are currently still out there. Wrote my first one with my partner at the time, Don Dempsey, with that company that we first started, and then ended up writing the first grant. It was a 2-year grant that actually started BioSurfaces. So we were fortunate enough to have what we call non-dilutive funding. So instead of investors, we had grants that could basically really support the research and support the innovation, allow us to really be creative, allow us to really develop the technology. And we were really successful with that over the last, first 10 to 12 years of existence. We were very successful in getting grants and contracts, and we still are, but we've relied on them less. But that was really the first, we were very fortunate to have that type of funding to start the company, and it allowed us to expand our technology dramatically.
As you already slightly mentioned, the philosophy of the company has changed over time. In which sense has it changed, from grants to now? Where was the funding mainly coming from?
That's, I think what ended up happening is that as we saw grants, the process for grant reviews and grant submissions changing quite a bit, and it has changed over the last, say, 8 years. We realized that we needed to pivot the company away from that as the prime focus of funding. Not that we won't apply to a grant or a contract, but it couldn't be our primary reason for bringing in capital. And so we realized that through that initial 10 years, we developed a lot of technology. And so from that, we then decided that we wanted to reach out to potential strategic partners or customers, and those could be either large or small customers, and provide our technology to them. And that's been actually a really successful endeavor. We work with some very large companies like Takeda Pharmaceuticals, which in the past 3 years, as people may have seen, that we've had press releases related to significant research and development contracts where we've used our technology to solve a problem for them. We've also done this with other smaller companies, with some other large companies such as Edwards. And the technology just has a broad base. We work with medical devices, but we also get consumer interests from companies such as Scott's, where they were looking at it for bed bugs. And so all these different things have allowed us to really expand the technology base, and really have allowed us to expand not just into medical devices, but to other areas as well. So we've been very fortunate enough to have that type of capital to bring in. And hopefully in the upcoming year, we'll also be a year or two, we're going to be looking to be selling our own products. So we'll be entering into manufacturing, into other areas to start driving some revenue from our products internally.
The company's main technology centers on electrospinning. What is electrospinning, and did you invent the technology?
So electrospinning is basically a simple way to put it, and we'll show you a little schematic during this part of our talk here. But basically, and simply put, it is taking a polymer, and for those who are not familiar with a polymer is something that you wear like on your clothing. So your clothing is made of polyester, or your floors are coated with a high gloss surface that's called polyurethane. So those type of polymers are actually used in medical devices as well. And so if you take those materials and dissolve them into a solution, so they basically make a nice liquid, and then you apply a voltage across it, that voltage excites the polymer. It creates these very fine fibers, and those head to ground and are collected. And those fibers that are collected, they can be collected into a device structure. They can be collected into yarns and sheets and things like that. And so it really gives us an opportunity to develop very different types of structures using this process. And your question about whether I invented it or not, no, this technology has been out since the mid to late 1960s. It is a technology that we've been able to really generate some intellectual property around. So we've been able to refine certain aspects of the technology and apply it to what we're looking to do. And so we've been able to generate several patents, several continuations in part, and we have several patents pending related to the technology. But it's not something that we invented, but it is something that we've been able to refine and use for our specific needs.
What are the benefits of making a material using electrospinning versus using a standard material formed with weaving or knitting?
And so, the shirt that you see that I have on today is a woven material. And there are other types of materials that you're probably very familiar with that are knitted, like a sweater, things along that sorts. And so those fibers and those processes that make those materials, the fiber diameters are typically fairly big. And so the average fiber's diameter for those materials is 15 to 30 microns. And so just to give you an idea of scale, average human hair is about 70 microns thick. So these materials that make up our clothing is probably about 2 times less than a human hair, and then you weave those or knit those together. For electrospinning, you're looking at a fiber diameter that's anywhere between, a half a micron up to 2 microns. And that's anywhere between 30 to 40 times smaller than a human hair. So you can see the scale of difference of how small the electrospun materials are. And that type of small diameter fiber is really important. And the reason I stress that is because if you think of how the cells grow in the body, they grow on this very fine fibrous, natural scaffold called extracellular matrix. And it's very, very thin, very randomized. And that structure is where cells are happy. And so what we do with electrospinning is really make a scaffold that really resembles that structure. So the cells really enjoy growing onto it and into it. And the body, which normally will reject an implant, and what I mean by that is, so say, for example, you get a splinter or a sliver, whatever part of the country you're from, and your body automatically sort of puts a barrier around it and then tries to get rid of it. And so that type of rejection occurs also with medical devices. Not that the device fails, but that the device itself will sort of get walled off and the body will try to just sort of figure out what it is. It doesn't know what it is, so it just puts a wall around it. In our case, because the fibers are so small, that type of rejection is minimal to non-existent. And so what ends up happening is that the body really integrates our material in, so you get better healing properties. The other part of the benefit of the technology is that we can add specific drugs to target a disease state. So, for example, if someone deals with an infection or the disease results in an infection when the medical device implants, we could put an antibiotic right into each of the fibers and be able to deliver the drug. So you have all of these benefits plus the ability to make really different structures, different types of thin materials and different shapes that really provide electrospun materials a significant advantages over the woven and knitted counterparts.
You've already started to mention all of the benefits of using electrospinning technology. What has the company done to protect its technology and, how it's developed over the years?
So, one of the things you always want to try to do as a company is try to generate some intellectual property that protects what you're doing. And so, as I mentioned previously, we were able to submit several patents that have been issued. We have several what we call continuations in part, where we've done more work in that space and we've been able to expand the applications within that patent. We've also been able to submit new patents to start protecting our new technology. The other part of it is we have, over the last 18 years, have developed a lot of trade secrets. And what those are procedures or little nuances that we've developed internally over the last 18 years that really help the technology succeed, sort of what we would call a secret sauce. Like Coca-Cola has a formula that they use for their product. We have some trade secrets that we also have that are not included in the intellectual property that protect what we do. And those types of nuances and knowledge that we've gained over the last 18 years are really important for the success of this technology. It's allowed us to be able to scale the technology to a manufacturing level, and it really have allowed us to keep a lot of our trade secrets internally, so that way the process that we use is not as well known to potential competitors who are in the marketplace.
What technology aspects did BioSurfaces initially focus on?
So when the company started, the first grant that we wrote was really focused or centered on an artificial artery. So basically making an artery from a polymer material. And that actually was the start of where the company went, and still is a really big passion of mine. We started with a small diameter vascular graft, or small diameter artificial artery that would be used in positions in your leg or below your knee, or even potentially even smaller towards bypassing the heart. And from that, we then went into other aspects of the technology in terms of looking at it for sutures and for wound dressings and for other types of medical devices. And so that's where our initial focus was, really primarily medical device centric, and still is to some extent, but not, we've been able to change that approach a little bit.
How has the approach, as you already started to mention, in terms of advancing the technology changed over the past 18 years?
So, as I started to mention, we, started with medical devices. Again, medical devices are going to sort of always be with me. I've been in this field for the last 30 years. And so I will likely be doing that till I'm no longer in the field. But it is a passion of mine, the artificial artery that we are developing, what we call our new spun vascular graft, is still a passion of mine, still trying to move that forward. But we also have been able to pivot to other areas, as I mentioned a little earlier, with consumer products, companies that have come to us that are not necessarily focused on implantable devices. So things like, as I mentioned earlier, Scott's, who was looking for an ability to attract bed bugs and kill them, could use this technology, and evaluated it a little bit. Again, some of these are proof of concept studies where they try it, and if they like it, fine. If they don't like it, they move on. Or if the company changes their philosophy, they just move on, and that's the end of it. And that's what happened with Scott's. But there are other companies that will, work with us and continue to move the technology forward. We are working with, as people maybe have seen, Corning. We have executed a supply agreement with Corning last year. And that was really focused on developing an in vitro diagnostic tool. And that sounds like really fancy words, but basically what it is that sometimes you want to learn about a disease outside the body, so that way you can treat it inside the body. And so you have these different tools that you can use, such as plastic plates that would be able to grow cells on, and then you can use those plates to grow the cells and then look at how the disease progresses. So for example, a primary example of that right now would be COVID. What you would do is grow airway cells or lung cells or nasal cells, and you would use this tool to then see how the virus penetrates into those cells. And so you're able to develop a mechanism of how the virus works. And then you can also use those same plates to determine how treatments would affect the disease. In this case, the COVID virus, how would it, basically be blocked or eliminated. So those type of diagnostic tools or external technologies where they're consumer based are things that we've started to really dive into and think there'll be a very significant market for over the next several years for us.
Along with continuing to advance the company's internally developed technology, BioSurfaces began some proof of concept studies for Takeda at the end of 2015. In 2017, after successfully completing these initial studies, Takeda and BioSurfaces entered into a 3-year R&D agreement in mid-2017 to develop specific devices for Takeda. How did that change the company?
So, I think, as I mentioned before, we have customers and potential strategic partners who come to us with an idea, or they want to, as I would call it, kick the tires. When you go to a car dealership and you want to check out the car, you sort of kick the tires a little bit, see how the car is. Well, I think a lot of groups will do that with us, and Takeda was one of those as well. So in 2015, they came to us and said, we see that your technology is interesting. We want to see if it's applicable to what we do. And so we ran several proof of concept studies for them to let them evaluate our technology for different applications. As I mentioned before, at that point, they could have said, yes, this is great. We're interested. No, we're not interested. Or we're really interested, but the company's changing direction and no thanks. And so those type of proof of concept studies come with a risk to us in that sense that, we could get really engaged and all of a sudden the company decides they're not interested. But in Takeda's case, after conducting these studies, they really saw the benefit and the value of the technology and approached us and said, well, we're interested in having you develop 3 specific target areas for us using your technology. And so those technologies really were focused on a perianal fistula plug, and that in a very simple way is basically patients who have ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease and other types of pre-existing conditions can develop a tract that starts from the rectal area out through the bum cheek, for lack of better term, and that tract can be very painful, can lead to other complications. So this ability to seal that tract up with a material was something that Takeda was interested in. So we developed what's called a perianal fistula plug to seal up that tract that runs to the outside of the body. We also looked at developing drug-loaded materials for them to deliver specific drugs to diseased areas of the intestine. And we also looked at a cell chamber, so basically a material that would hold cells and be able to deliver a target drug for them. And those, what we call 3 shots on goal, were started, that process was started in 2017, and that changed the dynamic of the company dramatically. From at that point, we had a significant world leader looking at our technology, evaluating it, and understanding that the benefits are there. So, developing that relationship with Takeda took many years and led us to that research and development contract, which was huge for the company. It allowed us to expand the technologies into other areas like gastrointestinal, which we weren't in at that point. And it also validated what we were doing. When you have a large company that does the due diligence by doing these proof of concept studies and seeing how the technology works. And we submitted 2 provisional patents with them too. So we were very fortunate to be able to develop this technology with them. And it really was a game changer for the company in terms of really getting a stable, secure partner to work with.
What other medical devices has BioSurfaces been developing? How far has this development progressed?
Well, I think the biggest one, as I mentioned earlier, is the artificial artery that we're developing, our new spun vascular graft. That's been 18 years in the works. Actually, it's been 30 years in the works if you consider all the work that I did in the past on artificial arteries. It's changed a lot, since we started the company. But this new spun vascular graft can be used not only, as I mentioned, for peripheral, using it in the legs, but it also can be used for hemodialysis access. So patients who have end-stage kidney disease who need to have their blood filtered into a dialysis machine, can use this type of graft implanted in the arm to deliver the blood to the machine and then back from the machine. We've, have had to work really hard to move this technology forward. We've been able to have some great, investors that have worked with us initially just to get some proof of concept studies going and completed, and those have been successful. And so we're continuing to still try to push forward with this technology. Just been a really long slog because unfortunately, unlike certain, like for example, drugs where they're multi-billion-dollar markets, these markets aren't in that size. And so sometimes getting outside investors engaged sometimes is a challenge, or even strategic partners. So, but been at it for 30 years, and we're undaunted in that challenge. We really believe in the technology. We believe that it can help people at some point, and so we continue to push forward. So that's been our primary driver, but we also have, again, the perineal fistula plug that we've developed with Takeda that will hopefully be moving forward. We have sutures and other types of devices that we continue to strive to work towards moving forward. And I think that, to me, has been really, really for us, our goal, ever since we were, at inception, is to bring something forward that can help people. And that's really the driver of everything that we do. It's not about anything else. And that's the scientist in me, that, our goal is to help people at all, and I think that's, what we strive to do every day.
What other areas outside the medical device space has the technology been applied to?
Oh, I just want to mention one other thing, Kim, before I answer that question too. I just wanted to mention a lot of that technology that I just described to the audience. We've been able to move that technology through preclinical studies. So we've really been able to do some advanced preclinical studies on a lot of the technologies we've done. I did want to mention that. And to get to your other question, so the outside areas, as I mentioned, we're working with Corning to develop these in vitro diagnostic plates that will be used for different disease states like cancer, retinal disease, looking at drug discovery. We've been able to make some significant ground working with investigators at the National Institutes of Health, because actually the driver of the technology really was the National Institutes of Health reaching out to us saying, we have a problem, can you help us? And that really led to us getting into the in vitro diagnostic plate business. This is not an area that we said, oh, part of our bucket list is to get into in vitro diagnostic tools. That's not what happened. Most of the things that we get into are driven by customers or by a need. And in this case, investigators at the NIH, which we'll talk a little bit about, give everyone who's listening to this a precursor to our next webcast. We'll be really sort of focused on that area. But it really started with the NIH and the need. And then for us, that's what led us to, this area. But, we have other consumer products that we're also looking at that I really can't talk about in terms of who the customers are. But these are more for topical applications. And we just signed a joint development agreement with them. And again, that takes us away, completely sort of from the medical device space in these areas. So it's really makes my job fun that, we come in and one day we're working on a medical device like a vascular graft, and then the next day we're working on an in vitro diagnostic tool. So there's a lot of different things that we do that make my job fun every day. And I think everybody here also makes their job fun too.
There are other companies in the electrospinning area, both in the U.S. and abroad. What is the value proposition offered by BioSurfaces? Why do they stand out more than these other companies?
Well, I think one of the things that attracts customers and strategic partners to us is that we really offer a full solution. I think there's a lot of companies that offer either the biologic input or they offer the material input. But I think that we do a good job of understanding the full need of the customer, from the problem that they're coming to us with, and then being able to provide them a solution. So for example, I'll use the perianal fistula plug. Not only we do our homework, we have, from my background in academic research, I'm able to get to surgeons. We'll be able to understand what the surgeons face, what the problems are with perianal fistulas, able to develop and design our response to that based upon their input. And so we really try to understand the full scope of the problem. And not that other companies don't try to do that, but I think we have the ability to do that. And I think that's why companies and customers and investigators reach out to us. And then that the customer is very important to us. Like, no matter what the customer is looking for, we will try to help them in any way that we can. And, we really are a customer centric based business. And being scientists, it makes a difference to me if they're succeeding. Maybe if I'm a business person and I'm looking at it from a dollars and cents perspective, which we do, not going to lie, well, every company's here to make money. But in the same sense, too, part of what drives us is to really help an investigator and watch them succeed. Because ultimately, my feeling is that if they succeed, we're going to succeed as a company. So I think that's what really puts us really at an advantage to many different companies that are out there in this space. And I think for us, also seeing many potential competition out there also bodes well for how important electrospinning is. So having other electrospinning companies also shows that there's a need for these types of technologies, and so it validates what we're doing and the need for what we do. But I do think that our value proposition really to the customer is that we provide the whole solution. And I think that's huge.
Started to mention value proposition. How does the BioSurfaces team factor into that value proposition?
I think it's absolutely huge. Our team really is focused, as I mentioned, starting from the top to everybody on the team is, the value proposition of the customer is really important. And our team gets that. They understand also as scientists why what we do is extremely important, and that the value is that value that we bring to the customer and how important the customer is. Ultimately, they're also doing research in our labs, and they understand that when they're reaching out to potential collaborators or things like that, how important those types of interactions are. And so we have a great team here. I mean, as Tina, my wife, and I say, we're successful because of our team and because of what our team brings to us. It's not just, you do get I always get a chuckle when I hear someone who's a CEO or say, oh, I did it all. It's like that. It's completely not true. Really what happens is that your team is one of the most important aspects of what we have here at the company. It's our most important asset. And our team has been outstanding, even through COVID, through all of what we've been dealing with. They understand the importance of moving this technology forward and helping the customers, and cannot say enough positive aspects about our team and what they bring to the table. But it's always been a blessing over the 18 years to have such great people that have been with our organization.
What are your high-level plans for the upcoming year?
For the upcoming year, our goal is to continue to advance our internal technology, our medical devices, moving hopefully the vascular graft forward, developing the fistula plug and continuing to push that forward through advanced preclinical assessment, with a goal hopefully for both of those programs eventually is to get into some type of clinical evaluation in people to then bring those technologies to market. We are also looking to implement manufacturing for the first time within the company. So we're really excited about that opportunity. As I mentioned, the in vitro diagnostic plates are really advancing along. We also have other technologies that we're pursuing that would require manufacturing. And so, to bring, that type of capability to the company is really exciting, and also help drive revenue for the company as some of these other things, projects begin to progress along at their pace. And so we're excited about the upcoming year. We've got a lot of things going on. We may have some new news, hopefully in the next month or so, that we're hoping to have, hoping that you'll get first look at, and likely one of the things will be announced on our webcasts or our blog, actually, probably more likely on our blog or in a press release. And so we're excited about the upcoming year. We've got a lot going on, but we're really excited about the path for the company and our potential for growth over the next year or two. So we're hoping that the next year or two brings us some pretty good growth internally, and will allow us to really advance all of our technologies forward. So exciting times here at BioSurfaces. I'm not going to lie, it's amazing where we've come over the last 18 years, and starting with me just sitting in a lab and developing some technology to now here we are, and we're hopefully going to be expanding the team significantly. So
A lot of exciting stuff we have planned for 2021, and thank you guys for watching. This has been an informative webcast. We'll have many more this year planned, and hopefully you will stop by for those too. If you're interested in learning more about our BioSpun technology, or would like to make a suggestion about a future webcast or future webcast topics, please feel free to reach out to us at info@biosurfaces.us. And to learn more about BioSurfaces, please visit our website at www.biosurfaces.us. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, bye.
I know. Thank you.